Welcome everyone. Today we go over a whole bunch of different glitches, all centered around the idea of canceling out or glitching the vertical motion of items, enemies, and bosses. Be sure to smash that like button. That's right, smash it. Turn that like button blue, you know you want to. Without further ado, let's dive in. So first we're going to go over what we used to call a heavy clown car. In the past we did a heavy clown car with a shell and a note block like this. And what it would do is it would create this effect on this clown car where we actually couldn't fly upwards at all. So we were stuck. So this clown car was stuck down on the floor like that. This lift is going to go up. And it's going to lift this clown car and this cannon over here and drop the clown car off. But really what's happening here is that this shell is going to be bouncing along this note block. The note block is going to be going up and down. And when the clown car makes contact with the note block, for some reason it cancels out the vertical motion of the clown car. So you'll see it bounce up and down a little bit. And then when it gets pushed off, it's going to be stuck in that effect. So the vertical motion of this clown car is going to be canceled out. So this setup drops this clown car off, and you're going to see that I am stuck here in this clown car. Here, I cannot go upwards at all. I'm stuck here on the ground. So this is why we called it a heavy clown car. And what we can do with this is create some really cool effects with enemies or with yourself. So I added a thwomp up there. And when I go near the thwomp is going to fall, and when it falls, it's going to be stuck in a crashing animation. So right now you can't really see it, but it is indeed stuck to the floor. I can't push it around at all, and it's not going to go back up to its original location. We can play around with this with a couple different things, namely on-off switches and seesaws. You're going to notice that these on-off switches hit consistently. Again, this thwomp is slamming down the entire time. It's not going to go back up. So it creates this continuous on-off switcher device. Again, with the seesaw, it's going to consistently slam. So this creates a little bit of a hyperspeed effect on the seesaw. Now, when I jump onto it the first time, it's going to pop me up, which is kind of interesting. After that, I kind of just sit on it, and I am stuck in this mode. If we put other things, it will actually launch those things up. But this creates interesting effects with seesaws, and with on-off switches, and many other things. This is the heavy clown car. So the next discovery with this kind of an idea is a vertically challenged koopaling, or at the time we all thought it was a zombie koopaling. So basically what happens here is the same kind of a thing where the spike ball hits the note block and it bounces this koopaling up a little bit. The POW block that comes out of the note block is going to push the koopaling over to the left. The spike ball hits the koopaling again, which damages it and puts it into its shell. And when it's in its shell, it's just going to continue to spin inside of its shell continuously. And so this is the next advancement of this kind of tech. You'll see when I come out of the door right here, this creates a global on-off machine or mechanism. Because the koopaling is global, he will not disappear. He will continue to hit this on-off switch indefinitely. So koopaling will not get out of its little shell at all. It will continue to spin like this indefinitely. This same setup works for all of the small koopalings. Show you Iggy real quick. Pretty much the same thing happens. And here we have Wendy. Same idea, same concept, just a different color shell. With this setup right here, spike ball hits a note block, which releases a POW block and pushes this guy off, but he doesn't get hit by the spike this time. So what'll happen is he'll just be standing there still, not doing anything. So Mr. Larry here drops and just decides to have a nice little conversation with Toad. He'll stand there and do nothing, except for talking, unless we jump on him. If we jump on him, he goes into his shell and never comes out of it. He will go until he hits a wall or falls off the edge of the earth. So here we have all three of the smaller koopalings chilling, doing nothing. Zombies. We can apply the same effect to the bigger koopalings, Ludwig, Morton, and Roy. This time we don't need the POW blocks inside of the note blocks. We do need a ceiling above them, and we need them to be on a stack. So this thwomp right here is an easy one to put underneath them because it can't go into the note block. When we start the scene, the thwomp will despawn because it's on the same tile as the note blocks, and the koopaling will fall in that zombified form again. So same idea, just bigger koopalings this time. They do behave the same as the smaller koopalings if we jump on them. They will go into their shells and not come out. They will just spin indefinitely until they hit a wall, then they go back the other way, or they'll fall off the earth, or hit on-off switches, or whatever. We can also apply the same effect to boom booms. So this boom boom is going to fall off of this little spot, and he's not going to be able to jump anymore, so he's going to get stuck. For reference, we gave a normal boom boom so you can see how he jumps around and this other guy doesn't. So the boom boom on the left is not going to be able to jump, but the boom boom on the right will. So when I go out of this little spot, you'll see the difference between the two. One is normal, the other is stuck. Cannot jump. It is vertically challenged. We can also do this to Bowser Jr. In the interest of saving time, you see that one doesn't have wings and the other does have wings. They both have different behaviors as far as what they spit at you. However, they behave pretty much the same. So they both drop and they'll both just stand there. The one without wings will shoot fireballs. The one with wings will just throw hammers. They pretty much both behave the same though. When I create enough distance between me and Bowser Jr., he will start to chase me. When he gets out of his shell, he will go back into his form, where he just spits fire or throws hammers. The setup for Bowser is slightly different. The semi-solid is on the note block that he's standing on, and the spike ball is on a regular ground tile. There's a wall, a ceiling, right above his head. So, other than that, everything is pretty much the same. Bowser is by far the funniest, however, because of all of the expressions he has. So when he falls, again, he cannot jump. So that means when he starts to fly, he will just start gliding like that, which is pretty silly. When he hits the wall, he'll come back. It's even funnier when he starts to glide towards us because of his expression on his face. Ah! This is hilarious. Probably the more interesting one, because when it flies, it will try to slam on top of you. It will do its ground pound thing. So now he's going to fly towards us, and when he goes above us, he will slam on the ground and ground pound. He also has some interesting effects in NSMBU. His flying is very slow, and he will nod his head up and down when we jump, which is pretty silly. We can also apply the same effect, this vertically challengedness, to a bunch of different enemies. First one we're going to go over is the Mecha Koopa, and we have to do it in night ground theme because it's coolest there, and you'll notice that they don't fly around like they should. They will shoot their first beam, but after that, they won't shoot anything. The small blue guy will fly around, the other two won't do much at all. And it's because they are trying to fly around, but they're not able to. And so because they can't fly around, they can't shoot anything either. If we try to kick them, they don't go very far. They inch a little bit at a time. The same effect can be also applied to chain chomps. This creates those flying chain chomps that you saw in the past. So now you see those flying chain chomps, which is pretty interesting. When they hit a wall, they will just float right down like that. It's kind of silly what they look like on seesaws, because I can weigh the seesaw down and move them up, but they still do not come out of their little floaty thing, their vertically challenged state, unless I hit them with my shellmet. Here's a similar setup, this time with wigglers. So these wigglers, as you can imagine, are not going to jump. The one with wings is supposed to jump, the other one's not supposed to jump, but they do get into a very weird state when we start the scene. Their butts do not go far from their heads, and they will only go in one direction. Unless I jump on them, then they fly the other way. The one without wings goes very fast, the one with wings goes very slow. He's supposed to be jumping up really high, but he's not jumping up at all. With this setup, it's also possible to cancel out vertical motion of power-ups. So you'll see the star right here. It's supposed to bounce around. It will not bounce. The frog costume will not bounce. This is night ground theme. This mushroom is supposed to bounce around when we jump. It won't do anything either. Check this out. So they will just sit there stationary, doing nothing. The star also will not be affected if it's on a seesaw. It will stay in the same horizontal position. They are also not affected by conveyor belts. So check that out. Sitting on conveyor belts without moving. Very interesting.